Hello my friends, Mikkel Renna here. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you. In today's video, I'm going to be refinishing some Dollar Tree jingle bells. So I did a previous video where I refinished some bells, the very same ones, but I used gold leaf and sort of refinished them to look like all of the rustic gold cowbells that have been trending over the last few years. So this time I decided to try silver leaf. Now I have seen a lot of bells in silver, but I find that a lot of the cowbells that I've seen in silver tend to have like a galvanized look to them. So they look kind of cold. So I didn't really like that too much. So instead of just doing these bells completely in silver, or I know that there's like a chrome sort of look that a lot of bells come with, like that really shiny silver, I wanted to do something rustic that sort of looked like the cowbells and the ones that the jingle bells that I did in my last video. So I used silver leaf this time and used a variety of paint colors to just achieve a lot of dimension and also to give them some warmth. So I typically decorate with a lot of gold during the Christmas season, and then even throughout my home throughout the year I'll use mostly gold, but I do have quite a lot of mixed metals as well. So I do incorporate some copper, bronze, brushed gold, and a little bit of silver here and there. I tend to use silver a lot when I'm complementing it with like mother of pearl buttons. But in this video, I'm just going ahead and refinishing these bells, and you can tell me what you think. I like how they turned out. I think I still prefer the gold, but I really do like how the silver turned out, especially with the different dimension of colors. And again, these are just from Dollar Tree. I thought I'd refinish them. It is after Christmas, but what I do is if I come across things after the Christmas holidays, or I get inspired after Christmas, or I come across something on clearance, sorry, I like turned into a transformer there for a minute. But if I find something on clearance, I'll still go ahead and decorate with that item or craft that item and still display it until I take down my decorations. I probably won't be taking down my decorations until the end of the first week of January, maybe the second week of January possibly, and then I'll go into my Valentine's Day decor. Now the good thing about this technique that I'll be using, you can totally use it on Valentine's Day decor, Easter decor, summer decor, fall decor. So I had these bells and thought, why don't I just do a video? Even if it's after Christmas, the technique itself can be used on other items for other seasons as well. So if you like the video, please like, subscribe, and share. I would be totally grateful. But without further ado, let's get started. Okay, my friends, so our first step is to remove all of the greenery from the tops of our jingle bells. What I did was I kept the little pine cones and added them to some Dollar Tree Christmas trees that I picked up this year, and then I donated the greenery to my local craft store so that people could reuse them. Then I'm keeping the little hemp twine on top so I could dangle them to dry. Next, I'm adding a coat of what's supposed to be chrome spray paint, but it's actually like a regular silver, and I completely coated each of the bells outside. And next, I went in with a bright gold, except it's not bright gold, it's actually bronze, and that's fantastic. I used this in my other video, and it turned out beautifully on the bells. So I'm just doing like a quick blast, like in streaks, over top of the silver, because I'm going to be layering different colors of paints. And there you can see what it looks like. And now they're hanging in my laundry room because it was a bit rainy outside, and I just left them here to dry so that we wouldn't get any raindrops or bubbling. Okay, my friends, so I switched from using the bronze colored spray paint to this. So this is Copper Rose, and I prefer how this is coming out. It's giving me more of like a coppery look, also kind of like a rusty look. and I'm going on pretty generous with it. So I blasted some of the other bells with the bronze color, but I thought it was a little bit too light. I wanted something a little bit more intense. So I decided to go in with this copper rose, and I'm doing it at close range. So let me get another bell and I'll show you what I'm doing. So I've been dangling them in the air and then blasting them, but I'll do one blast for you and show you how I'm doing it. I'm literally just shooting this right at it. And that's what's giving me a really random streak that looks kind of like rust, and then it's also kind of dripping, which is cool. And that's gonna really give me like the dimension that I'm looking for. So I'm gonna go over the entire bell, but I'm gonna do some blast spots as well, where it's so the color's deeper and more intense. So it's like lighter in some spots and then deeper and more intense in like other areas. So this is one big experiment, but this is how I craft. So if you're new to my channel, this is what I do. I try things, and this is what I've done ever since I was a little girl, and how I typically craft. And I love it. I love doing this. And if it's something that I like, I repeat, or it just truthfully just gets better each time. So let me continue blasting, and then after I'm finished with the copper rose application, we'll move on to the next step. Okay friends, so here are 3 of our 8 bells, and they're the 3 that I'll be working on for the rest of the video. And each of them has all the same 3 colors of spray paint, but they all have a unique look. So for our next step, I'm going to be using this metal leaf adhesive, which is basically glue for gold leaf or metal leaf. And in this video, I'll be using silver leaf. So I used gold leaf in my last video, and this time I thought I would go with silver. And so I just picked up these flakes at my local dollar store, and I'm using a little cheap paintbrush to apply the adhesive. Now this adhesive, once it dries, it remains tacky. So if you miss a spot with the gold leaf, it will still stay sticky on the item. You'll be able to touch it with your finger. And you just need a little bit at a time. Here, a bit too much kind of like squirted out, but it's not a big deal. You just spread it around. Eventually it dries clear and it will remain tacky, so you just add the gold leaf to it. Now you can add the gold leaf or silver leaf, sorry, at any point in time. But if it's a thick layer, it might break the leafing itself, and then it might ooze through. So then you'll have some stickiness on top. It might stick to your fingers. So just a little something to be mindful of. You don't need a thick layer. You just need a thin layer, and then you start adding your silver leaf on top. Now some people use sheets instead of the bits that I'm using here. It's entirely up to you. This is what I was able to find, and it's what I'm using, and it's what I used in my previous video with the gold leaf. And I like how it turned out. It's a fairly quick process. It's a random process. You just kind of go along and add it where you want to. You can even cover the entire bell if you choose, but I did it in patches because the goal I'm trying to achieve is to have different color variations and different intensity as well. So the silver leaf is going to give me sort of like a chrome look, or almost like a sterling silver type of look. And then the silver spray paint is a little bit more dull, so it'll kind of look like the silver's tarnished a bit. So that's kind of what we're going for here. And I'm just going to continue adding where I feel is necessary. And it's going to kind of look funny at first because not everything is glued down. But you'll see what we'll do next. So you're just adding basically the silver leaf to wherever the glue is. And afterwards, I'll show you how to remove the excess. Okay, my friends, so I left the silver leafing to dry for a few hours and got started on removing it with this bell right here. And look how beautiful the silver leafing turned out. So what we're going to do is take a dry paintbrush and we're just going to brush away at all of the excess leafing. And the excess leafing would be the bits that are popping up and have no adhesive. So everything that did have adhesive or did connect with the adhesive is now glued down to the bells, and all the excess will come off fairly easily. So you're just going back and forth with your brush, round and round, and you'll be able to see any bits and pieces that are popping up. And if you come across any spots that happen to be sticky, you can actually take a little bit of the silver leafing and just put it right on top, and it will adhere very nicely. So I'm just brushing gently. It's kind of like a little archaeology project actually. But yeah, you're just brushing away and all of that excess will come off and give you a really nice, smooth and shiny look. Okay, my friends, so all three bells are nice and smooth now, and what we're going to be doing is adding some silver acrylic paint using a little round sponge brush. So what we're going to do is just add some of the paint just right here onto this cardstock, and the nozzle was clogged, so I had to unscrew the top. But next I'm going to load my brush and then pat it kind of dry. So I kind of want it to be sort of like I'm using chalk paint, if you kind of catch my drift. So we don't want it too wet, but we just want to make sure that it goes on and not too heavily. So you want to be able to see some of the copper through. So don't go over all of the copper and bronze completely. And you want to make sure that you don't go over the metal leaf at all. So you want to stay clear of the metal leaf, because the look we're going for is sort of like we're trying to create a tarnished silver or tarnished sterling silver bell. So we have some chrome look, the chrome effect or sterling silver effect with the silver leaf. And then in between, I'm just lightly going on with the silver acrylic paint, making sure to leave some of the copper showing through, some of the bronze showing through. And you can stop after this step if you choose, if you like the way that it looks here. but I'm gonna continue on and you'll see the next couple of layers, and that's the look that I was going for. I wanted to make sure that they didn't look too cold. I really don't like galvanized bells. They're a little just too cold and too dull for me, and this is why I chose to use this many different so many different colors for this project. Okay, so here I go again. I'm going to be adding another layer of the silver acrylic paint, and I'm going to be using the exact same technique that I used in the previous clip. So again, I'm going to avoid the silver leaf areas, and I'm going to make sure I leave some copper and bronze exposed, and I'm just lightly going over some of the same spots, but we do want some variation, so you don't have to go over the exact same spots you went over previously. We're just going to make sure that we have like a really nice variation in dimension and color. So this, like I said, is very forgiving. I mean, you just dab wherever you see fit, and you'll kind of be able to gauge just by looking at it. So for our next step, you're going to be using a nice fine paintbrush, and I'll be using Maui Sand chalk paint. I love this chalk paint. You'll probably hear me say that in every single video, but I do use it around my house for various projects with various colors. And I love it for Christmas projects. So what I'm doing here is just going around the Saturn rings of each of the bells. So I'm taking my time, and you don't have to completely coat the ring. What you want to do is just kind of add some paint to your brush. Don't go too heavily. You just want this to kind of highlight the ring and still have some silver going through. So that's what I'm doing here, and this is just going to kind of help that area to pop a bit, and you'll see that as we progress with the project. So I'm just going into the crevices and creases, but not covering the entire ring so that the whole thing is like, you know, dark gray. I'm kind of just dragging the brush along, and so you'll see some silver like peeking through, but it's enough to make that ring really pop. So now I'm going back in with the exact same round brush I used previously with the silver paint, and just adding some Maui sand and just lightly dabbing it on the cardstock so that it's not, you know, drippy. And I'm just going to gently pat around the entire bell. And at this stage, you can add a little bit to the silver leaf. So right over top the silver leaf, you don't want to cover it completely. What we want to do is kind of make it look like the sterling silver is getting a bit tarnished. Now, if you find that you've gone in a bit too heavy, don't worry about that. You can use your finger and rub it like I'm doing here, and that really helps it to thin out a bit. You can dry off the brush a bit more and spread it. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just gently and very lightly dabbing all around the bell. And also I ended up tapping the Saturn rings a bit too, because we want to make sure that everything kind of blends. It doesn't have to be completely, you know, one color. That's not what we're going for, but we just want to make sure that there isn't like a spot that's you know, obviously standing out. So that's what we're doing here. We're just blending the same way you would like with your makeup or any other art project. And so I'm just smoothing and kind of buffing here anywhere I think it needs some help. And this is the first layer, so you can just let that dry. If you don't like it, we can come back in again after. And that, like I said, this is like pretty forgiving. So I did lose some footage there with the other two bells. So this is how they turned out. And I'm going back in again with a second layer of the Maui Sand. And I decided to mix it with a little bit of the silver acrylic paint. And again, this is going to give us a little bit more of that dimension that I was talking about earlier. So at this stage, I really felt like adding the chalk paint, the Maui Sand, along with the acrylic paint really helped to soften that original harsh layer of Maui Sand, and it really blended it out nicely and made them look really aged and rustic. It really started to come along at this point, and you can see that here in the video. Okay, my friends, so if you like your bells looking a little bit more rustic, like in terms of galvanized, you can stop here. But for me, I felt like they were missing a little something. So I went in with my favorite gold acrylic paint, and that is Glorious Gold. I love this color. And I felt like it was going to give our bells a little bit more warmth and a little bit more brightness. And since we're going for almost like a tarnished sterling silver look, I thought the more dimension we added, the better. So we're not going to go in with like a heavy layer of this or heavy blobs of this. We're just going to very, very subtly and lightly add a little touch, and then I'm rubbing it in with my finger. So the brush itself is fairly dry, and then I'm very, very lightly tapping the brush on the bell itself and then rubbing in. So it's almost giving a really, really light reflecting, or like a reflective kind of look. It's not heavy like you can see in the background on that cardstock there. It's really light, and then it's blending really nicely with the grays, and then there's copper coming through as well, a little bit of bronze, and then of course we have the shininess from the silver leaf, which looks like bright sterling silver. Okay, so next I'm gonna go back in with my copper rose, and this is Beaker. It's an old spray paintbrush that I spray paint and use for adding little copper streaks. But sadly, I had to retire Beaker because he wasn't holding the copper paint like he used to. So I went ahead and got another paintbrush, which you'll see in a moment. But all I'm doing here is just adding some copper streaks. So I took the paintbrush outside, blasted it, and then I'm adding some very, very subtle lines, almost like you would see like a marbling effect. Yep, there I am again with the can and our new spray paint, and just adding some streaks. And you probably don't want to use your finger like I am, but it's all right. And I'm just gently and lightly adding some little random lines, and there's no pattern to this. There's no sort of, plan in place here. You just kind of eyeball and go where you think maybe a little pop is needed. And if you don't like something that you've done with this project, you can always go over it with the acrylic silver paint or even some of the Maui Sand, blend it out with another color, and all will be well, because they're supposed to look unique. They're supposed to look rustic, maybe even a little rusty. And so that's how they ended up looking once I added the copper. And I'm just going in on this one here to show you another one. And these turned out so cool with all the different layers of paints and colors and textures too. And now here is our final look.